Alright, hi guys, this is the Deathless Article for Grammar School, and today I've just got a few hands to review from a session I've just played for you. I thought it'd be nice to sort of mix up the pace, change the pace a bit. Well, my brain is going for words, and the fact that I just phrase that like that is further evidence. Anyway, I've got a lot, so I plan to do a couple of videos, even if I do. There's a strong chance that I won't get through all of them. I think there's about 25 or something. With that said, I haven't yet gone through them myself in any detail, so there also might be a few hands that are just really obvious, or that I'm not sufficiently certain of an outcome of what is correct myself to talk about them in any detail. Having had a quick look through, I don't think there are many of that genre. But in any case, if there is a common theme, to this video, I think it's going to be how ranges play against each other, and what this means you should do. Anyway, to discuss this first hand, villain. Yeah, the reason why I'm not just using Poker Tracker is it's been really awkward with hand replay recently, and because I've just played the session now. Any hands that were based on specific reads, I can remember the reads, so there's no need for me to talk about, for me to refer to a HUD or whatever. This hand, our opponent is pretty much an unknown four-tabling regular. As in, I had about 100 hands on him. He was about 32, 22, which could be a fish, but the fact that he's four-tabling means he's probably a regular. He min raises a button. The big blind's irregular, so I don't think there's any. That's probably a standard sizing. We 3-bet in a small blind with King Jack offsuit. We're 100 big blinds deep, so that seems pretty standard. We'll be using a depolarized small blind 3-bet range there. He calls. The flop comes 9-3-2 with 2 diamonds, and we have the King of Diamonds. I think c-betting his spot is pretty good. He'll probably be his defense range pre will probably include all the ace-x suited, a lot of hands like ace of clubs will have to fold. He won't have that many strong pair hands here because he won't have many 3x or 2x in his range. And he won't be too delighted with. He probably won't peel something like King Queen of Spades either. We also have some backdoors, not only the backdoor flush draw, but we also turn backdoor straight draws on 10s or queens. And obviously we have our 2 overcards to play with, and we have pretty much 8+ for value here, as well as some hands as well as some draws which are so strong they're pretty much value hands. That'll be hands like ace-5 of diamonds, 8 and ace-jack of diamonds. We probably check call ace-king and ace-queen. But it should be noted that we do probably have about 15 to 20 diamond combos, if not more. Flush draw combos, if not more. So we see bets, he calls. He probably has a lot of backdoor flush draw and overcard type hands here on this particular texture, so we're going to want to barrel pretty aggressively, especially on spades and clubs, which don't really improve his range in terms of pair hands, because if he has King Queen of Hearts, then on the 4 of Spades, he just has to fold. Same for hands like Jack 10 of Hearts, or King Queen with the King of Diamonds, and basically any backdoor flush draw broadways. He's also going to have to start considering folding hands like Ace Queen offsuit if he has a pre with no backdoor flush draw. So that's probably his range of calling the flop. The turn, obviously he has some flushes which get there. We also have some flushes which get there. I think the good thing about this turn for us, aside from the fact that obviously we now have a gut shot and a flush draw to go with our 2 overs, is that a lot of his hands like 8s through 4s without a diamond now have to fold. And because we have the king of diamonds, we actually block a fair few of his made flushes. Okay, so we block king queen and king jack of diamonds, king 8 of diamonds if he peels that pre. But that's still a relatively decent number relative to his whole range. So considering we are going to want to continue barreling some hands here, possibly over pairs without a diamond. Over pairs with a diamond, if we haven't check called the flop, we're going to check call here. And certainly I think we will be betting most far over pairs on the flops because it's just a flop which is so much better for our range than his. And that's why we're not just, that's why we don't really want to bomb it, because we do want to continue betting hands like kings of clubs and spades some of the time. Also, obviously, we have flushes and we have some hands like 10-9, and pocket 9s and pocket 10s. Well, we probably check call the flop with pocket 9s, but that's irrelevant. No, that's not irrelevant, but that's not a big deal for us. We bet again, he calls again, so at this point he can definitely have hands like king queen and king jack with a diamond, possibly queen jack. He probably folds spades and clubs on the flop. He might be making some loose peel with the second ace high, and he probably has 8s through 4s with a diamond, as well as any 9x he has pre, so that's probably 9-7 suited plus, and then I'm not sure he'll actually have any offsuit 9x pre, and then whatever 10x he hits on insert. We should note though that he isn't exactly going to be delighted to peel the turn with 10x, because obviously he loses to our entire value range. The river is not great for us. Our opponent definitely has more 9x than us. Well, we just don't have any 9x's aside from 10-9. And we can't get 3 streets with overpairs here. So if we jam, we're repping pocket 10s, 10-9 suited, we don't 3-bet offsuits, and any flushes we have, which to be fair is a fair few flushes. We have ace deuce suited, actually recheck call that, ace 4 of diamonds, ace 5 of diamonds, ace 6 of diamonds, ace 7, ace 7, 8, jack of diamonds, so that's 6 nut flushes. We have king 8 of diamonds, king jack, king queen of diamonds, that's, did I say 6 or 8 nut flushes? Let's go with 6, that's 9 combos of flushes. Queen jack and queen 8 of diamonds, that's 11 combos of flushes. Jack 8 of diamonds, maybe 12, and then 8, 7, 7, 6, possibly 6, 5 of diamonds. So we have up to 15 combos of diamonds. The other thing is that we don't have that many combos on this river which are as good to bluff as this. We probably don't 3-bet worse offsuit ace-x than, because obviously having a diamond blocker is very good for us in terms of creating a bluffing range. So let's assume for a second that we have 14 flush combos, then 3 combos of pocket 10s, 2 combos of 10-9 suited, so that's 20 value combos overall. So when we jam for 3/4 of the pots, we want a value to bluff range of roughly, crikey. So villain will be getting, here we're calling 3 to win 7. We want a value to bluff ratio of 7 to 3. So we said 20, let's say 21, and say we want 9 combos of bluffs. Because we're not 3-betting worse ace-x offsuit than ace-10 pre, we check the flop with ace-king and ace-queen some percentage of the time with the ace of diamonds, and the king of diamonds. So we have, and we check the turn with ace-10 of diamonds. And we only definitely have ace jack, which has the ace of diamonds in it, which is in a value hand. And let's also give one combo. Let's also say we've got one combo for the times we bluff. Sorry, let's say we've also got one combo for the times we c-bet either ace king or ace queen. So that's two combos, which are obviously better to bluff than this one. And then we have king queen with the king of diamonds. Oh crikey, I'm counting combos wrong. Wow. Ace jack with the ace of diamonds is 3 combos. Let's give ourselves half of the ace king and ace queen with the ace of diamonds. That's another 3 combos. That's 6 overall. And then if we want to be perfectly balanced, we probably want to bluff about half the remaining combos of king queen and king jack with the king of diamonds, and then give up the rest. But with that said, it's not absolutely clear cut that the ace of diamonds does make so much a better bluff overall, because while it's definitely blocks more of our opponent's calling range, because our opponent probably has every nut flush except for ace king of diamonds, it also sometimes wins at showdown. Now you've got to balance those factors, and while I think this on the balance of things, while I think this on the balance of things, it's probably more important to have the ace of diamonds in your bluffing range because of the huge difference in the number of combos it blocks. It blocks about 8 rather than about 2. It's not clear cut by any means. So yeah, I think the river bluff is fine. It's borderline in terms of balance, but anyway, I do expect most 100 Zoom players to overfold here, because they're just going to show up with a bunch of jack 10 suited, queen 10 suited, pocket 8s with pocket 4s with a diamond, ace queen, ace jack with a diamond type hands, which just can't call. And they're going to have to start calling, I think, a decent number of 10x to get to reasonable defense frequency, considering we're getting 1 1/3 to 1 on our bluff, so they need to defend. Hold on, 3 of us. They need to defend about 57% of the time. Sorry, it's kind of tough to do this stuff in my head. Yeah. So I think this is a decent river bluff. Actually, I'm going to keep these tabs open so I can. Yeah. Second hand, make a pretty standard defend in the big blind against the reg opening and cut off. It's probably close to the bottom of our calling range. You probably defend king 6 suited and fold the other suited kings against a 3x. Defend them all against 2.5x. We flop 2 pair. It's definitely a board on which we have enough value combos to check raise. This guy was opening the cut-off reasonably tight, so we have pocket 10s pre, we have pocket 7s, we have king 7 suited, king 10, all the combos, and we have 10 7 suited. We can also pretty much call ace jack of diamonds, queen jack of diamonds, 9 ace of diamonds, and jack 9 of diamonds value raises. So we have a decent number of combos. And it's not exactly going to be too hard to find decent bluffs here. So hands like 8-6 of clubs are going to be great bluffs. He calls. He turns a jack. Now, notably, this is a really bad card for our range. Some straights get there, but they're not the straights that we're going to be check raising. On a very rare occasion, we're going to check raise 9-8, I guess, but I think in general it's slightly too strong to use check raise bluff on this board. And also we 3-bet ace queen pre. Now we're assuming that villain's going to bet c-bet ace queen some percentage of the time and going to bet call some percentage of the time. This he does bets, especially with a diamond. And I think he's just always going to c-bet and then call a raise with 9-8 suited here. I don't think he has a 9-8 offsuit pre. So he has at least, let's give him 11-ish combos, which beats our entire range. That is just under half the ace queen and all the 9-8 suited. he also possibly has pocket kings. Depending on his strategy on the flop, he might have pocket tens and pocket sevens. That's another 5 combos total. He might occasionally bet call pocket jacks, though personally I would see bet and then fold to a raise. And he obviously has king 10. All the combos are king 10. So he has a fair few hands which are ahead of our whole range. That's the straights and king and pocket kings. And he also has a fair few hands which are ahead of our hand, and that's especially bad on this turn. I think because check raise check lines are often also really weak, I think it makes a lot of sense to put some of the bottom of your flop check raise value range into your turn check calling range, just so when you check the turn after check raising a flop, you're not just always folding, especially on turns like this which aren't great for your range, so you can't just barrel everything. It's also notable that some of our bluffs here, hands like Jack 8, etc., are also going to want to check. As for what his range is, obviously he has Queen Jack, etc., which hits a pair, Ace Jack possibly, Jack 9 he obviously has, so I don't think any of those are going to bet. The hands which are going to bet, which... Oh, he might have Queen 9 also on the flop, which beats us. The hands which he bets, which we beat, are going to be Queen Ace of Diamonds. If he has it pre, that's not a given. And then whatever nut flush draws he has, which don't have a pair. He had this low enough c-bet percentage that I don't think he's c-betting A7 of Diamonds here, and possibly not Ace Queen of Diamonds, to be honest, but he's going to c-bet at some percentage of the time, or rather the population of which he is a part, that is the group of players which would present us the information that we have on this guy, which we had at the time, which is pretty much a tightish reg, opening pretty tight from the cutoff and c-betting about 52%. They're going to c-bet Ace Queen of Diamonds some percentage and check it back some other percentage. So he probably only has about Ace Deuce to Ace 6 of Diamonds. That's 5 combos of bluffs. Ace 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 9 of Diamonds. That's 7 combos of bluffs total on the turn. And possibly 6 5 and 5 4 of Diamonds. So let's give him 9 combos of bluffs overall. So his range is actually pretty strong for betting this turn. I don't think we can fold. We're getting decent odds. Sometimes we fill up on the river and stack a straight. And also our range is really weak. And while it's not going to justify minus EV calls, the fact that our range is really weak, our range is really weak, this hand is quite close to the top of our range, makes it kind of tough to justify folding it. You need extreme reads to make a big adjustment from a balanced strategy. On the river 6, it's pretty much irrelevant. I check. He bets roughly the same portion of the pots that he did on turn. I think this is not all in, but I can't remember specifically. 76, 90. Yeah, it's just under all in. Well, it's about $40 left behind. I think folding here is good. The thing is, people have become somewhat more cognizant of the effects of blockers on their bluffing range. And as such, they're not going to be bluffing with Ace X of Diamonds that often. Of course, I don't think it makes a big difference here, simply because we rarely have the Ace of Diamonds in our, after taking this line. Occasionally we have Ace Jack of Diamonds. Or maybe Ace Jack with the Ace of Diamonds. But that's not a huge number of combos relative to the entirety of our range, which is going to include hands like Jack 8, which we want to check all the turn with. So I think we can discount some but not all of the combos of ace-x suited, ace-x of diamonds. We're guessing, I think that's about 2/3 pot. Someone will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I hope. So he's betting 2 to win 3. It needs to work 40% of the time for him to break even, so we need to call it his 60% of our range. No, that's not the way around I want to do it. We're guessing. We're calling 2 to win 5. So we need to be right 40% of the time to justify calling. Now let's recap what his value range was. We said 7 combos of ace queen, 4 combos of 9/8, that's 11, and let's give him 1 combo queen 9 suited and 1 other combo of queen 9 just because just for the hell of it. So that's 11, 13 combos of straights, which is always going to jam. 1 combo of kings, which is always going to jam. That's 14. 3 combos of 10s, which is always going to jam. Let's say 2 combos because he might 3-bet the flop sometimes, even though I don't think that's very good. 16 and 1 combo of 7s, which is always going to jam. 17. Well, let's also give him 1 combo of jacks. 18. So in order to have a break-even call, 18 combos needs to represent 60% of his range, which means that he needs to have 12 bluff combos. That's simply not going to happen. If you remember the range we discussed on the turn, that is ace-x of diamonds with possibly 6-5, 5-4, possibly 8-8-6 of diamonds. There aren't that many combos there, and if we remove some of the diamonds, so let's actually count them out. Ace-2 to ace-6 of diamonds, 5 combos. Ace-8, ace-9, 7 combos. 8-6, 8, 6-5, 9, 5-4, 10. So he has 10 combos maximum, and we need him to have 12 combos of bluffs to call. And we also think that he's not always going to bluff ace-x of diamonds. That's why we're folding river. Because his range is so strong, his river sizing is just a bit, well, I say it's too big. It doesn't actually affect his EV, because the fact that we should always fold means that he has an EV of pot, which he would if he bet an optimal size and bluffed an optimal frequency, and we called an optimal frequency. So it doesn't really make a difference, but that's how it works. Next hand, we 3-bet big blind against button. We're a little deep, 120 big blinds deep. This guy is opening 70% on the button, and folding about 70% to 3-bets as well. But he's still pretty loose in the first place, and also continuing wider than most. So he's continuing with a 21% range against a 3-bet. Flop comes Jack 7-5. That's great for him, terrible for us after given our range, especially small blind against cutoff. Sorry, he's actually opening quite tight in the cutoff, but it's not folding much. So he was 24-45, I think. So he's gonna have about a 13% range, but still, this flop is much better for him than us. He has pocket 7s, pocket 5s, possibly pocket jacks. We only have pocket jacks, which makes a set. And also he has a load of huge draws, which we don't have. We thus want a relatively low c-bet frequency, especially given how easy it is for him to continue relatively often on this board. And I think ace-king without a heart is just a very clear check most of the time on this flop. When he checks back, we can exclude most jack-x. He possibly has some hands like jack-10, jack-9, queen-jack from time to time. We can exclude 9-8, 10-9, 10-8 suited, 8-6 suited if he has it pre, which he probably doesn't given his frequencies. And we can exclude most flush draws except for maybe ace queen of hearts, and maybe ace-5 of hearts if he has it pre. With that said, it's tough to see that he has much air. He might sometimes check back a hand like king-queen, but obviously on this turn that beats us. If he has ace-2 to ace-4, then he might check those, but I think he folds as pre-some a decent percentage of the time. But apart from that, he doesn't really have any air. So on this turn, our hand is pretty crap against his range. We also don't have very many obvious bluffs on this turn. If we have any king 10 suited remaining in our range, which you probably do after checking the flop, but not all of them. Those are obvious bluffs. Now, obviously, we don't have any 10-9 suited, 9-8 suited, or 10-8 suited. We possibly have some ace 10 suited, ace 10, which we're going to want to bluff, but again, not all of them. So I think in terms of equity, this hand makes a fine bluff. We don't need to be precise about our frequencies. But we clearly have a ton of value hands. We have ace queen, king queen, probably queen jack suited, pocket jacks, and some combos of aces and kings, especially with a heart. So I think betting his turn is just fine. We expect him to fold 10s through 8s a decent percentage of the time, which is a good result for us. Also 7x some percentage of the time, and pocket 6s if he has his. And obviously when we're called, he can have jack x, especially jack 10 and jack 9 suited, and occasionally queen jack suited. But he also sometimes has ace queen or king queen, but not really of hearts or diamonds. So that doesn't leave too many combos, especially considering we block the ace of spades, and also he probably doesn't bet king queen offsuits with just the king of diamonds on the flop. So our blocker there isn't that bad. Isn't that useless rather. So when he calls, we just discussed his calling range. On the river, again, if we check, we lose. That's just how it works. And the thing is, because we have aces and some combos of aces and kings, we also have all the combos of ace queen. We have a decent sized range that we can bet for value with. And so we probably want a few bluff combos. I'm not going to count out combos specifically like in the last hand, both because it would be a really boring video if I did that every hand, and also because, well, it's a less precise art in this video, because on these dynamic textures, people's strategy varies a lot more. I know I definitely don't always play the same strategy on this texture. But we probably don't have king 10 offsuit pre-small blind against cutoff, especially considering he's opening the cutoff quite tight. So we would probably always see betting king 10 of hearts and diamonds. That's only 2 combos remaining, and ace 10 we have some combos but not all of them. But also with a 10, that's not good for us, because one of the things we want him to fold is naturally jack 10, which he has more of than queen 10, because queen 10 in his pot is going to bet the flop a decent amount. And also our ace and king are actually both good blockers, both positive blockers, in the sense that we expect him to bet ace jack and king jack on the flop nearly all the time when we check to him. So they operate to block his calling range in ace king and king queen, ace queen and king queen, but not his folding range in jack x. I mean, that's just a very rough divide, but it's rough the divide I expect people to draw. People who think a bit more might realise that it's pretty marginal. They're probably slightly overfolding against this sizing if they do start folding all the jack x, but also they're going to realise that we don't really have that many feasible bluffs, especially considering a lot of reds aren't going to bet the turn with ace king here. So I think ace king is a fine bluff. It might be better than ace 10, it might not be better than ace 10's bluff, but yeah, it's definitely reasonable. Just as a final caveat on this hand, I'm going to note that the only reason that we are turning ace king into a bluff is a specific board texture. On most boards in 3-bet pots where you've missed with ace king, it's best just to play it for showdown value. Here, as we discussed, it doesn't really have much showdown value, and that's why we can bet it. Oops, I didn't want to close that. Next hand. Okay, this is a weird one. It's not that weird, it's actually one we can discuss pretty quickly, but you don't get many hands like this. We open middle position, the cutoff 3 bets. The button cold calls, and he's a regular. He's an aggressive regular, but he's a regular nonetheless. So at the widest, I'd expect him to be 10s plus and ace queen plus, with cold 4 betting queens plus and ace king 7% of the time. But he never has worse than 10s, or ace queen. That makes our range, the range with which we want to 4-bet, quite relatively tight, because we're raising into 2 players who both have very reasonably strong continuous ranges. I mean, in theory, the button should probably be folding lots of 10s and jacks combos to the 4-bet, but he probably won't, especially considering we're deep. So let's give him 10 at the same range. Some combos are 10, some combos are ace queen, but always jacks plus an ace king, with not all the combos of ace queens and ace king. And middle position is probably continuing with his 3-bet value range, which is going to be queens plus ace king. So it's actually pretty marginal whether or not we can 4-bet kings for value. We definitely can't 4-bet queens. Just because we're not ahead often enough when we see an opponent continue. We do 4-bet though with kings, and we get called by the button. Flop comes ace 9-3. So let's just analyse what its range is. At its widest, I don't think it's ever cold calling ace queen offsuit really. So at its widest, it is 6 combos of 10, 6 combos of jacks, 6 combos of queens, 1 combo of kings, crikey, ace kings actually quite, and 3 combos of aces. How many combos of ace king? Sorry, this is actually really hard. 12 minus 6, that's 6 combos of ace king. And let's say, and so 3 combos of ace queen suited. So that's 9 combos, 12 combos which beat us, 1 combo we chop with, and 18 combos which we beat in his widest range. In his tightest range, let's say that's jacks plus an ace king. There were 12 combos we beat, 1 combo we chop with, 3 combos we lose to, although he's going to 4-bet some of those some percentage of the time. And there's ace king, which is 6 combos. So that's either way, his range is pretty tight. So we check and he checks back. Obviously, we can't really value bet because we expect him to have a folding range, and that means we're behind his continuous range and drawing 2 outs against most of it. He checks behind because it's a 4-bet pot. The SPR on this board on this flop is going to be, there's 142 left into 66, so the SPR is just over 2. So he can get it in over 2 streets if he needs to. I don't think it's necessarily the case that he never has ace king here. But also I think it's the case that he's always going to check back with any hands worse than ours. I just don't think he really has a bluffing range here. So I think it's actually quite an easy check fold if he bets, given it's specifically the button who cold called the 3 bets. Because his range is condensed, he doesn't have any bluffs pre, so he doesn't have any hands which have worse than pocket 10s on this flop. So he reaches a turn with roughly the same range. It's complete blank, changes nothing. We still don't really want to bet. We have some bluffs, some 4-bet bluffs pre. I mean, to be honest, betting is a bluff is actually I guess theoretically a reasonable option if we just think about where we are in our range, because a lot of our 4-bet bluffs are going to be hands like ace-5 suited. Maybe not, given we would have seen a flop 3-way, but we might sometimes have ace-x as one of our 4-bet bluffs, which would put us right at the bottom of our range. But he would never fold any better hand. That's ace-king. He'd have maybe ace-queen, and he'd be wrong to fold a better hand. So it's obviously not a good hand to bluff if we think about it a bit more. We check. He bets. So the thing is here, I don't really think that a lot of regs are turning queens into a bluff. In fact, I guess basically no one is turning queens into a bluff here. A couple more maybe turning jacks into a bluff. And a couple more still are turning 10s into a bluff. But some don't have 10s pre-flop. Some also are just never bluffing a pocket pair here. Just completely in ignorance of what their own range is. We also sometimes have an ace here, especially hands like ace-5 suited or ace-jack offsuit that we decide is a 4-bet pre as a bluff. So really, it's actually quite tough to see how we can call. He probably has about 4 combos of ace king left. If he has aces pre, which he isn't going to, he might start betting that on the turn. So let's give him another combo. That's 5 value combos, which isn't a wide range, but I don't think he's ever going to bet queens, and I don't think he's betting jacks and 10s very often, if he has them, if at all. So maybe 2 combos, and if he does bet them on a turn, he's probably also going to bet them on the river, which effectively turns some of them into a value combo. See Jander for why that is on the turn, which means it's actually really hard for us to call his bets. And I think it's a decent fold. We do have some of a range which is calling, but it's not a huge one. Okay, quick drink. Okay, next hand. We open under the gun. Middle position at 3 bets. Middle position's been playing pretty tight, about 2017, and over a very decent sample is only 3 betting about 5% in this spot. We call. 4 betting and folding are both insane, given he's playing such a tight range, but we have ace fucking king for the reason we can't fold. Flop, standard check call, nothing else to do. Turn, there is arguably some merit to donking, because we have pocket queens and he doesn't, and arguably we also have pocket kings and he doesn't. But I think this is a situation where it's going to be better to donk with a polarized range rather than donk hands like ace king. The reason being, he can't, given we don't have a very big SPR on the turn, he can't really exploit us for checking with a capped range, especially considering he only really has 3 combos of aces here which beat ace king. So he can't just go batshit bluffing against it, and I don't think he has that many bluffs either. So I think the donking strategy is certainly legitimate here. If anything, exploitatively, to make sure you always stack aces when you have queens or king-queen suited. But I think with this hand, check call is a better option. We check and he checks behind. Now I think he's always going to check aces on his turn, for the reasons we basically discussed. We have queens, possibly kings and king-queen, and he has none of those. He's also going to check ace king, but he doesn't 3-bet often pre, given he's only got a 5% 3-bet percentage from that position, and that's going to include all times he's 3-betting fishes open, where it might be as wide as 10%. So I think realistically against us, his range is probably going to be 3.5 to 4%, which certainly doesn't include all the ace king combos. He also might choose to check the flop with ace king with the ace of hearts. We see the river, 2 of hearts. I don't think it's especially relevant that it's a heart. I don't think either player has many flushes. We arguably have queen jack of hearts or ace queen of hearts in our range, but it's not going to make a hugely substantial difference. I'm not sure what our strategy should be with the flush pass for range. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference, but it's worth noting that we really don't have any bluffs on this river. And I think we can expect him to bet aces. I think aces is a very big part of his range, and I think we can expect him to bet it always when we check. So I think checking is going to be a decent strategy with the flush pass for our range. So when we do check with ace king, we aren't actually that high up in our range. Which means that when he bets a decent size, he's been quite nitty post flop as well. I think it's certainly a tight fold. I'm not sure it's good. But considering, given a slight sizing tab as well, this is actually about 29 into about 37, which is a little over 3/4 pots, which is quite unusually big for a 3-bet pot at 100 zoom. I think it's actually probably a decent fold. I just think he nearly always has aces here, despite the fact that there are only 3 combos left in the deck. But because it's also really tough to see what he's bluffing with here. If you look at what he might be 3-bet bluffing with pre-flop, if he has some kind of hearts hand, he's going to see about that and then barrel nearly always. 2 diamonds, he might see bet that and not barrel, but obviously we have the ace of diamonds, which removes a lot of those combos from his range. And he's not always going to see bet hands like 9 ace of diamonds. Also, if he is 3-betting ace x suited, then he probably has ace 5 here as well, which isn't great for us, obviously. And then apart from that, it's really tough to see anything he's bluffing with, because obviously if he 3-bets with hands like king queen pre-flop, they beat us. King jack, I think he'd be insane to bet if he's 3-betting it pre, simply because ranges are so strong in this spot that it doesn't make sense. He can't get called by worse, and that's pretty much it. He occasionally has 2 diamonds as a bluff, and that's it. And I think he possibly also occasionally bets a chop, though that's a pretty thin value bet, and I think we have to discount a lot of those combos, especially considering with the ace of hearts he's going to check the flop some percentage of the time. So yeah, again, I've said it before, but I think I should repeat. I'm not absolutely certain this is a good fold, but I don't think it's a particularly bad one either. This is just a very quick hand. The reason we limit the small blind is he has a 20 big blind stack and a big blind. He's been raising 30% overall, so we're very happy to get ace 9 in for 20 big blinds, but also it makes sense to use a limping strategy in a small blind against a 20 big blind stack and a big blind, because we don't want to let him 3-bet jam, and we also don't want to min raise, because that lets him defend basically everything. We don't want to let him 3-bet jam basically. Dan Harrington called it the all-in vigorish, but when you bluff all in, you have the advantage of always realizing your equity, which is hugely advantageous. Obviously, when you raise fold a small blind, you realize 0% of your equity, which is bad. So yeah, pretty standard hand, ace 9, obviously stacking blind against blind for 20 bigs. He showed up with ace queen, but I don't think that's really problematic. I don't think that's really a problem. Yeah, this doesn't really have any strategic content. I just tagged it because it was funny. Our opponent here is a regular. Flop checks through. He bets a turn. and checks back the river, and we win with 8 high. He turned up with pocket 5s, which I've got no idea why he's betting his turn. It's a really bad bet. Well, I guess it's not too bad if he thinks that most people are betting 8s through 6s there. But I don't think that's realistic, especially given both the big blind and I should have all the combos of 8s through 6s. And there isn't really that much protection value to be had, considering hands like King Jack are just always betting in both of our positions. So sometimes he has to deal with 2 overcards, hands like Ace Jack, but that's only 6 outs once, and he doesn't have to make this awful bet with 5s to protect his hand. But yeah, funny hand. Worth noting here that we are 173 big blinds deep with the small blind, who is a whale. Yeah, this is one I don't really know about. And 100 big blinds deep with the big blind who's regular. We open, small blind calls, big blind squeezes, we caught. We're just going to call super wide versus play pots with the whale. Flop checks through. We could just about value bet this against the whale, especially considering the big blind is going to be betting nearly all King X to value bets to get value from the whale. So the whale shoves to 5x pots, and I didn't have any specific reads on him at the time. The thing is, some whales when they do this goes like 60-24. Some always have a flush draw, and some just always have Queen 10. So the fact that we have 2 pair isn't particularly important. It has 4 outs against Queen 10, and that's pretty much the importance of it. But we'd certainly rather have a hand like Ace 2 of clubs. But the thing is, we're getting slightly better than 1-1. We're calling 160 to win 190. And well, there are just so many more flush draws than in his range, considering how loose he is pre than Queen 10 combos. And so I think he only has to be bluffing. He has to be. Let's give him 16 Queen 10 combos, and then there are about 30 flush draw combos. Maybe more, probably more in fact. So he has to be betting a flush draw only half the time. I mean, obviously we're getting slightly better than 1-1. So if his flush draws had no equity, then it would be then it'd be less than half the time that he'd need to bet his flush draws, assuming he has twice as many flush draws as Queen 10 combos. But yeah, here. He has more equity with his flush draws than he does with Queen 10. So I think it's close, to be honest. I'm not precisely sure how the population of whales plays in this spot. Anyone who plays a limit with more whales than 100 Zoom probably has a better idea than I do. What do 60-24 guys show up in this when they just jam the turn for 5.5 times a pot in this spot, guys? Tell me in the comments. And in fact, tell me in the comments now, because we've only got through 5 hands, maybe a few more. Yeah, a few more because I closed them. We've got through a few hands, so I think it's probably a good place to end the video. I will be recording a second part after I've had a little drink. When I say a little drink, that makes it sound like I'm an alcoholic. I'll be having a glass of water. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Good luck at the tables. I've been a Deafness Article for Grinder School. Cheers.